smoker.
All of this makes sense until you get to cube steak and gravy.
Yeah, cube steak and gravy. What's up with that, man?
What in the world is cube steak?
Hey, we're so glad you're joining us today for our Pastors React. We're asking some really hard questions. Hopefully, we will help you out today. But we want to start out with a real important question so you guys can get to know these winners a little better. Question of the day, and we'll start over here with Pastor Andrew. Favorite food? Go for it. What's your favorite food, man?
Oh, man. Cube steak and gravy.
Okay, easy for me, tacos. I mean, I am just a man.
Always been a cube steak and gravy.
Gosh. Wow. Some shrimp tacos. Man, yes, sir. Makes me want to go to Cancun with my sweet. Anyway, go ahead.
I would say Italian food.
Italian food.
Love pizza, pasta, calzones, you name it, breadsticks. I could lay in a tub of breadsticks.
I'd say barbecue.
I dare you.
Barbecue.
We're gonna
Any
set
kind
that
of,
up.
not like chain stuff, like
One
any
day.
kind of hole in the wall family mom and pop style barbecue place. That's just something about the smell of the smoker.
All of this makes sense until you get to cube steak and gravy.
Yeah, cube steak and gravy. What's up with that, man?
What in the world is cube steak?
You don't even know what a
It's
cube
like
steak is?
hamburger steak.
You
Isn't it?
Yeah, but it's been
right?
ran through a cubing machine, and then you
Talking about like a-
you soak it in buttermilk, and then dip it in flour, and you
fried.
Fry it, yeah.
Yeah.
And you put on like
That's
better
chicken
rice,
fried
and then
steak and gravy,
but it's
right?
Huh?
it's kind of the
Chicken
same
fried.
concept of
Yeah.
chicken, but
cube
it's
steak's just
yeah.
a cube steak, man.
But you got to put it in, you got to fry it, and you got to put it
chicken fried.
with gravy on top of
know,
it.
Do you
like
like,
my
do you like
chicken
mushrooms
fried.
on it?
Not a mushroom.
All right, let's shift gears. Now that we're talking
I
about
know.
food, let's talk
White
a little bit
gravy,
about
not
what
brown
some
gravy
people,
that has mushrooms and onions in it.
what do people like to drink with their meal? So that leads into our
Coke
question
Zero.
today. I drink a lot of Coke Zero. The question is, what is a biblical worldview on alcohol? Biblical worldview on alcohol. So, let me frame this question up a little bit. Let me tell you, first of all, as a church, what our church believes is we do not believe it is a good thing to drink alcohol. So all of our pastors, we're what we call teetotalers, which means we don't drink any alcohol. So just to frame that up a little bit, but I want you guys to kind of weigh into what is the biblical argument. A lot of people say social drinking's okay. Are you cool with social drinking? I mean, how would you frame that up?
This makes me nervous.
Okay, this is also a heated debate.
Yeah,
Heated debate.
I was going to say we need to define what the beliefs
And
are too.
I don't want to smack a hornet's nest. I always think it is a bad. We know Scripture teaches to get drunk is a sin. It is wrong to get lit like a Roman candle. You just can't do it. You know, Roman candle.
I got that.
Just wanted to throw that out
Ephesians
there.
5:18, do not
Yeah.
get drunk with wine.
Don't get drunk with wine.
Body
Pretty
should be
clear.
filled with the Spirit.
Well, and so there's a lot of scripture that says, hey, don't get drunk. But then the argument comes back, but I'm not getting drunk. I'm just getting
Socially drinking.
just socially drinking, having one or two. And so I would say this. I would tell a personal story, and then y'all can butcher it up, cube steak it, whatever you want to do to it.
Yeah, keep
Let's take you some cube steak one day.
I
You're
would
gonna
I would
enjoy it.
say Scripture always talks about how alcohol isn't wise and it is a serpent that could bite you and potentially destroy your life. And while you may be able to socially drink and it's not technically a sin, you never know the state of other believers and younger believers or believers who have struggled with alcoholic tendencies.
But Jesus created wine in John chapter 4. So it's Jesus, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, but I would say
Jesus drank wine.
I know that some people would argue that wine was less potent than the alcohol we have today. So I mean, I get the socially part. I mean, I'm not a hard stance on like, oh man, if you socially drink, you're going to hell. I'm more lean on I don't think it's wise, and in the best practice of other believers and having them at the heart of it. I mean, look what Paul says. I think it's 1 Corinthians 8. He was willing to give up meat so that he would not cause his brothers to stumble. I know a lot of people are like, well, stumble, anything you can do can stumble. And it leads to independent Baptist theology. But I think there is something different here. I would say, what?
It's true.
It's true. What I would say is The reason Paul didn't eat meat is it was causing them to fall into a state.
Yeah.
They would walk by the temple, and the old pagan temples would serve meat inside of them that were sacrificed to the gods. So they would walk in, they would eat the meat, and think, okay, it's okay for me to worship and eat the meat. And Paul says, so I won't even eat meat if it causes them to stumble.
But let's get back to what you said a moment ago, where you said if someone does drink alcohol, like you're going to hell. Like we're not going to say that. That you said that just a moment ago. I think that's where, as a church or just as Christian people, sometimes we make the mistake of just picking out specific, things. You mentioned like a certain sect of Baptists, right?
Yeah.
Or even just belief systems where you had to have, certain length of your skirt or a certain length of your hair,
hair couldn't touch
right.
your
All those
ears,
things,
neck.
all those kinds of things. And I think you could pick apart
Can't wear shorts.
a lot of different things. And you go back to what
wearing
Paul says in
socks.
Colossians, where he talks about, I think it's chapter 2, where he says, don't let people judge you based on those kinds of things, like the things that you do like that. So it really is the gospel. You can't just pick apart certain little things.
Well,
is what you're saying.
And what I was trying to get back to is we have seen alcohol, especially in the profession that we are in, especially with student ministry. We have seen it destroy lives, destroy families, destroy finance. I mean, we have seen it destroy. It is destructive. And so anything that causes that much havoc, I tend to, if some people would just see the hurt in some of these students that have parents who are addicted to alcohol or siblings who have been wrecked by alcohol, I think it would honestly change their perspective. And my personal story is this, and I'll be done. My personal story is I had a friend that used to struggle with alcohol, got off of it, stopped, went to a church where the pastor said social drinking was okay. The church leadership invited him out, and they all had a drink, and he said, okay, since the church leadership's having a drink, I'm going to have a drink. And he fell back into that alcoholism, and it wrecked his marriage, it wrecked his life. And I'm like, that's the kind, like, I understand, like, yeah, sure, you can sit down, have scotch on the rocks, whatever you call it, I don't even know. But I just don't think it's wise.
Okay,
I just don't think it's wise.
This is my take. What's wise? That's the question. What is wise? And here's the thing: alcohol, in everything it does, almost always takes your money, takes your liver, takes your family. The other thing too is that you can't know alcohol by its very nature takes away your ability to reason. And so for people to say, well, I can have one drink and I can be reasonable, by its very nature, it takes away its ability for you to reason. So I think, Andrew, you're bringing up a good point. We need to be very careful not to make laws where God doesn't make laws.
Exactly.
Not to put hedges around the hedges around the hedges. This is what the Pharisees did. They made 300, 500, 600 laws out of the laws. And Jesus would come in and say, hey, that's right. Not what we do. But I think as a Christian, as a young man, you guys are young men. I'm getting older. But as a young man, we see the destruction of alcohol in homes. I did a little research, and some of the statistics just blew me away. 88,000 people in the U.S. die every year from alcohol-related causes. Over 3 million in the world a year from alcohol-related causes. Right now we're in the middle of this corona pandemic, and we're talking about to date somewhere close to 50,000 people have died in the U.S. from this terrible disease that's shut down the country, and it's awful. But to think that every year there's something called alcohol that kills more people than that can be avoided is almost. It's scary. And I think, we've seen so many families damaged that to me it's just unwise. I know there's certain things that, certain sins that will latch onto you and you're just not good at avoiding. And I think sometimes with alcohol, people don't know until they get there. So one other story I'm going to share, and Josh, I want to hear from you because I know we hadn't heard from you, is my grandfather was an alcoholic. And because he was an alcoholic, I never got to meet him. Because he was an alcoholic, my dad has stories of how he would come home in a drunken rage and what he would do to them and the anger and how it would affect them throughout their lives. And so for me, it's very personal. I never got to meet my grandfather, who was apparently a really cool guy other than the fact that he was an alcoholic. And I don't want that ever to be an option with my kids. And I know sometimes what I can do in moderation, my kids might do in excess. And so there's this... as a youth pastor, I always ask, do I want Josh to come over and see beer in my fridge? No, I didn't, because I think that he would think less of me. So, Josh, what would you say?
I don't really have too much new information or really anything new to add, but just to I guess, share my own thoughts on it is one, I think I go back to scripturally. I don't think we can condemn anybody for having a drink socially. I don't think anybody is condemned for having a drink socially. I do think that culturally, especially the younger generation of believers, and especially the church, not like Christ Place Church, but the church worldwide, there's all sorts of different cultural expectations and parameters around alcohol that I think if we create hedges and legalism, that we begin to isolate people who are genuinely growing in their faith with the Lord.
Yeah.
However, I think if anybody listening to this video is looking for a pastor at Christ Place to affirm drinking alcohol, I don't think they will find it because of everything you have said. And my whole thing is, I think Pastor Johnny Hunt, I heard him talk about it, and alcohol is a huge part of his testimony. Say it best, as he said, this is he talking about himself. How can I, as a pastor, get up on a platform and behind a pulpit and condone something that has ruined so many lives? And I think it's exactly what all of us have been saying. I know from stories and members of my own family and great friends that I have that thankfully the Lord brought them out of it, or some of them He brought them out of those. So others got lost in the alcohol. That my thought is, why in the world would I even chance it? And to go to your point, if you're having a student or another church member over and you've got alcohol in your fridge, are you within your right to do so? Yes. But my word, why in the world would I want to have, what if there's a distant family member of that couple or that family that's coming over who died in alcohol, died because of their alcoholism or was abusive because of alcohol, and you're sitting there, you're trying to minister to them, and you've got it sitting in your fridge. I just don't, from a testimony standpoint, I will never have it, and I would never, ever condone it.
So let's answer the question of, because I hear this a lot, what do I do if I see someone at a restaurant and I know they're a believer, or if I see someone at a grocery store and they're purchasing, how should I react if I am a teetotaler or if I'm not? I think it comes back to what Scripture teaches, that we're not the judges of people's hearts or character. The Lord is. I mean, obviously, you're out in public and you see a church member
they're usually
drunk.
running from you.
Yeah.
I know. I've run into church members a number of times with alcohol in their buggy, and you've never seen someone avoid you so quickly.
I would answer, if you see someone drunk or something that ventures into that sinful side, you address it one-on-one, Matthew, I think 18 style, right? I'm pretty sure that's how you address church stuff. But if it's just you don't know, like Josh said, you don't know what they're doing with it. I mean, you don't just flog them right there for drinking a sip of alcohol. Like I said, I would not advise someone to go drop all their life savings in the lottery. That's just not wise. But then again, there's not a special spot in hell reserved for those who have put their life savings in lottery.
Well, and you even even taking it to that, if, you talked last week about the struggles that maybe you have with different sins, and if you know for a fact that you're going to, addiction is something that
I have an addictive personality.
Right, exactly. If you have that addictive personality, in other words, you're addicted to sweets. If you're addicted to overconsumption, like eating, well, then you probably need to stay away from.
You seen how many sandwiches I've eaten during these things?
I'm just saying, you need to stay away from a buffet or something, or you can eat ice cream place.
It's true.
You need to avoid those things.
Very true.
So if we're gonna sit, I think we have to, exactly what Josh said, we have to be incredibly careful, but do so in a loving way as well.
Yeah, we're wrapping this up. So here's the deal. Okay, so how I'd sum this up for us is that as men, as pastors, we would advise you to stay away from alcohol. If you're someone who drinks alcohol socially, do we still love you? Absolutely. Is alcohol consumption wise? I would say no. For the most part.
Is it a sin?
Is it a
sin?
So
thank
drunk?
you so much for being here. Go ahead, subscribe, hit the bell. Hoping that sandwich would distract him. He must have 5 kids. Hit the bell.